This win ties Indiana's win over Oregon as the most impressive win of the 2025 season. A season that is far from over, but a season that may have ended for Texas, pending on the Texas A&M game and other chaos, because Georgia is just that good and Kirby Smart is still the best head coach in college football. I said in my preview that I thought Texas had several matchup opportunities and even advantages over Georgia, but I wasn't going to pick against Kirby Smart at home when Georgia was favored, when Georgia was power rated higher. And I'm so happy I made that decision, but I sort of feel gross at the same time for saying that Texas had theoretical matchup edges over Georgia because Georgia never trailed. The game was never in doubt. Georgia had more success passing the football, running the football. They got more pressure on Arch Manning than Texas did on Gunnar Stockton. They nearly matched Texas in tackles for loss. They won on special teams. They won in every facet of the game and won by 25 points, outscoring Texas 21-0 in that fourth quarter. I have seen plenty of people ever since last year call Kirby Smart a fraud, say that he's losing the program. Not that those people don't know what they're talking about, because sometimes smart people do or say really dumb things, myself included, and I don't think I'm all that smart. However, Kirby Smart, if you really think about it and you look at Georgia in the SEC at a granular level, has not stepped back. The competition's gotten tougher. They're no longer playing in what was honestly an easy SEC East division. They're playing tougher competition, and with how the talent is more spread out, and it's harder to have elite teams in college football, at least elite by the 2010s definition, where you had all SEC, all Big Ten, all American, NFL level players rotating, not just starting, and then you hoped your backups could be that good. That is why Georgia has taken a bit of a step back. They've taken a step back because all the programs, Ohio State included, Texas, as this year has shown, included, Alabama, as today showed, included, they've all taken steps back. All of them. So I just want to get that out of the way. Kirby Smart has not taken steps back. The excitement and the energy and the tactical genius that he showed, both in the planning and execution of the onside kick and his reaction to it, very much reminded me of Saban's onside kick in 2015, a similar reaction to, just all jovial. He is not aging away. He's not mellowing out. That doesn't mean he's going to put together his 2021 or 2022 teams again, but I don't think that any team in college football will probably replicate the power rating that 21 Georgia had. I mean, it's going to be a chore for Texas to put together a team that matches the 23 or 24 power rating. Again, like that's going to be a chore to do. Georgia, despite all of that going against it from prior seasons, and people once again, for whatever reason, wanting to doubt them, just in general, not saying they were doubt entering this game, Georgia was favored. They came out and they beheaded Texas. It's not an exaggeration either. That fourth quarter was a total, we're going to lay your neck on a plank and we're going to take the axe and we're just going to cleanly cut it off. Like clean cut, no rough edges, clean, precise butchering. This channel will make you a college football expert and help you enjoy watching games and make more accurate predictions. So what are you waiting for? Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment your thoughts, and watch the video all the way through so that you can get the full package. And check the description and pinned comment for more ways to help yourself and this channel. Let me tell you some data that describes how clean and how crisp Georgia's limb-severing operation was. Let's start with some expected points added and yards per play, yards per carry, yards per pass attempt numbers from the wonderful website GameOnPaper.com. Georgia was in the 68th percentile in EPA per play, averaging plus 0.11 EPA per play. Texas was in the 13th percentile, averaging negative 0.21 EPA per play. Georgia had a 45% success rate, which means they gained 45% of the time, 50% of the necessary yards to make a first down on first down, 60% on second down of the necessary yardage, and 100% on third or fourth down. Texas averaged negative 0.57 EPA per rush. Georgia averaged 0.01, or 1/100th of an additional point expected added per rush. Georgia averaged 7.39 yards per dropback. Texas averaged 5.54. Georgia, they've struggled with pass rush all season long, and they generated a 20% havoc rate in the 90th percentile. Every 1 out of 5 Texas plays was an interception, a sack, a tackle for loss, an incomplete pass, a stuffed run. Painful stuff. Painful stuff. In fact, I don't even think havoc rate counts incomplete passes. It's negative plays or turnovers. And Texas had 60. They had 60 total plays. They had an interception. Arch Manning did fumble at one point, but he didn't lose it. And Georgia had 7 TFLs, several run stuffs, sacks, some incomplete passes. Just dominance in all phases of the game by Kirby Smart and his staff. Glenn Schumann had a really good day. Mike Bobo had an elite day. And Pete Kwiatwoski, Johnny Nansen, even, Kyle Flood, Jeff Banks, the special teams coordinator for the Longhorns, Sarkisian himself, did not have a great day. Outside of that first drive for 3 points, which was Texas's longest drive of the day in terms of plays, tied with the 13-play drive that resulted in a turnover on downs after Texas was down 35-10, and second longest in yards. That final drive was 64 yards. The first drive of the game was 59 yards. Texas had a whopping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drives that all ended in a combined 7 points, under a point per drive outside of that initial drive. And when you count that drive, which resulted in a turnover on downs, well, yeah, that's 7 points in 9 drives after that initial drive that resulted in 3 points on a Mason Shipley field goal. Where does Texas go from here? Where does Georgia go from here? What happened with the quarterback play? I thought that Manning was going to put it together to a certain degree. I didn't think Texas would win. Again, I did pick Georgia to win, although I did pick Texas to cover. Sharp money was on Texas in this game, and yet Georgia won by 25. They won by 4 scores. So let's take a look at some takeaways here from the quarterback position. I want to give praise to Gunnar Stockton, who completed over 80% of his throws, had 4 touchdowns, a pick. On top of that, he had a rushing touchdown. His passer rating was a 187.7. His long pass of the day was 30. He was 24 of 29 and had over 200 passing yards. Phenomenal stuff. He, to Georgia, is what Stetson Bennett was in 2021 and 2022. I've said earlier in this video, for example, that Georgia probably won't get back to that level of team. It's the same thing with Ohio State, with some of their previously great teams, including last year's. It's the same thing with Michigan and their 2023 team. It's the same way with Alabama and most of the Nick Saban teams. You're not getting a team like that again. And if you do, you're lucky more than anything else, just due to the way the sport works and the new talent distribution curve and the fact that smaller schools can now pay additional to compensate for the fact that you are a better renowned brand, you're bigger, have a better developmental resume for players, etc. The point I'm trying to make is that something that can help your team win it all is a quarterback that just does the right things and can have a spectacular play here and there. Gunnar Stockton's that. And I think he's more than that. That play where he had to pull it very quickly on the RPO, and as he's getting hit, he finds one of his tight ends, I think, Oscar Delp, maybe it was Cash Jones or Lawson Lucky, finds him for like a gain of 7. That's an impressive play. Most quarterbacks just take the sack there, or they can't even complete the pass as they're being hit. He had some runs where he made defenders make a choice, and he executed. That throw on the 4th and 1 that Bobo called, where I think they had like multiple tight ends, multiple running backs in the game. I think it was like 23 personnel, like 3 tight ends, 2 running backs, Stockton, and then the offensive line, and they throw it, and it's a perfect pass, and he completes it. A, elite play call by Bobo. B, balls for Kirby Smart and that entire team. C, excellent completion by Gunnar Stockton there. He makes plays, and he just keeps performing better and better and better and better as the season goes on. He's building a consistent resume. He outplayed, according to QBR, where he had a 94.5 today, outplayed Fernando Mendoza, outplayed Julian Sayin. Those are top 2 in Heisman odds. He outplayed Ty Simpson. Outside of maybe Mendoza today, he had the best performance for a quarterback in Week 12. Pretty incredible. Some other things that were evident in this game is that Georgia had better receivers and better tight ends than Texas. They had the better quarterback. How we stereotypically view as college football fans and even like analysts, expert fans, diehards, how we have viewed Georgia in the past and Texas in the past under these 2 regimes is sort of flipped now in the skill position department. The physical element and edge that Georgia has and builds their reputation off of is still very much alive and well and there. But Georgia has better receivers. They have the better quarterback. They have the better passing offense. Defensively, relative to how these offenses have played in the month of November and October over recent weeks, because that matters, not just looking holistically, but especially in recent memory, as Texas built some momentum, Georgia's defense and Glenn Schumann outplayed, outcoached, made better adjustments than Pete Kwiatwoski and the Texas defense. Now, the Texas defense was not helped by the fact that Georgia was constantly in a good position, special teams-wise, field position-wise. But the point still remains. Georgia outplayed Texas on basically every level and deserves credit for that. For Texas, you're 7-3, you're 4-2 in the SEC. You need to win out if you want any chance at appearing in the college football playoff. If you want any chance at having a successful season, you need to win out. You need to beat Arkansas, who will be a test for you. They've played almost every SEC team they've played competitively. And Texas A&M, I think Texas may have some matchup edges there. But I also said that about this Georgia game, and look what happened. I mean, they were turned into street pizza, where their face just hit the concrete, was dragged across the concrete, blood, guts everywhere. Georgia just killed them. So nothing is a guarantee. Absolutely nothing. And one thing I can say after this game is Texas is not a top 10 team. They're not top 10 in power ratings. They're not top 10 from a resume angle. They have their limitations. They have their flaws. This is a team that I'm going to say after this game, no, they're not capable of stringing together 3 to 4 games and winning it all. I made a Twitter post, and alluded to it, I think, in my top 10 power ratings videos, which I release every week, usually on Monday, Sunday. I had 9 teams capable of winning it all. Two teams, both from the state of Texas, have been subtracted, and they're not Texas Tech. They are Texas A&M as of right now, and I think Texas I'll subtract too. Don't know that, haven't confirmed that for sure. I want to sleep on it, but intuitively, from this instant reaction, I think I'm subtracting both of those teams. Texas to this point, they're just not going to put it together. It's like Alabama and running the football. Or I know Ohio State ran for 200 yards on UCLA, but it's UCLA. It's like Ohio State and running the ball. Those teams are not going to all of a sudden start fielding good rushing offenses. They're not. If they get to average, that will be really good given everything else they have, especially the Buckeyes. But for Texas, their problems are much more deeper rooted than that. Their rushing offense, their pass protection, the secondary and passing defense is not what it was advertised by myself and others in the preseason. There's enough wrong for Texas and enough flaws to where I would eliminate them after this game. Even if they went out and at 9-3, there is a decent chance they reach the college football playoff. I think it's safe to say that their season is not going to end in hoisting the trophy. Probably a pretty conservative opinion, but just something I wanted to talk about. For Georgia, is there an argument for them to be at number one? Not in a strength of record sense, but in a power ratings sense. Because I think this is the most impressive win, tied with Indiana over Oregon earlier in the year. This was more dominant by the scoreboard. I think Indiana was more dominant physically, like watching film. And yes, I do think Oregon is better than Texas. And they did it on the road. But to do this in November with Texas coming off of a bye and more than tripling their score, and outside of the scripted drives, you totally dominate offense, you dominate defense, you dominate special teams, the onside kick that no one expected and it's executed perfectly, flawlessly. This is tied for the most impressive win of the year, with an argument for it to be the most impressive. If not, it's up there. Because I know I just said that Texas is not a top 10 team, but they're top 15, and I viewed them as top 10 entering this game. A lot of people did. The power ratings did. So Georgia beat them so badly that I'm kind of selling on that idea. Not because I don't think Georgia's good. Again, there's an argument, I think, after this game to say, yeah, there's value in looking at Georgia as a national champion. From a futures angle, from I want to get my predictions right angle. They're tested like Alabama. The difference is they're stronger in the trenches. And I don't exactly think they're worse at skill position. Their quarterback has been playing better than Alabama's. Their running backs are better. Their tight ends are better. I do not think their receivers are that much worse athletically. And in this game, their secondary performed well. Like, Georgia came to play. This was their best performance of the year. And this is what the good teams do in November. And Georgia, if this game, along with that Mississippi State game, is an indication of what they will be for the rest of the year, they're peaking in November in a way that I haven't seen any other team do this year. Of course, pending on what Ohio State does, pending on what Oregon does. Indiana's resting starters, so I don't really blame them for that. But you're talking about a lot of teams in rarefied air. A lot of them. Or what Notre Dame just did against Pitt. These are teams that are all viewed by the books as capable of winning it all. Georgia is capable of winning it all, guys. They are. They have the nation's best coach. They have a phenomenal support staff outside of that. They have a great defensive coordinator who I think was overhated for a few weeks, and an offensive coordinator who should be a Broyles Award semifinalist. That is what Georgia has. They have the most talented roster per 24/7 Sports team talent composite, and they've dealt with some injuries. They've had some guys go down, and they're responding in a way injury-wise that I don't know if any other team has. You know, Indiana, we've clearly seen in November as they've load managed. They've taken a bit of a dive because their backups are not as good as their starters, especially on offense. With Ohio State, when one of Tate or Smith are out, it is a one-game sample size, but something to potentially keep in mind. I don't think it's a coincidence that Sayin had some issues tonight. Like, their backup receivers are not as good as their starters. their backup defense is not as good as its starting defense. This is the case with Georgia too, but Georgia's had some guys go down. They're not as naturally gifted at a lot of the positions that score touchdowns, skill positions, or secondary with pick sixes that an Ohio State is, or in theory that an Alabama is. And what they have been able to do, or, Alabama took a loss today, dropped them in the standings. Ole Miss barely survived against Florida. I mean, Georgia did too, but whatever. Having their most impressive win of the year and best performance of the season in Game 10 speaks to their coaching and speaks to their position in college football. I mean, right now, they are, as long as Ole Miss and Alabama win their final conference games, which is not guaranteed, they have a really good shot to go to Atlanta, a really good shot to win the SEC, and even better, a good shot to win it all. They do. They are, after today, I think the best team in the SEC. What I've seen from Alabama, what I've seen from A&M, what I saw from Georgia today, what I know about Kirby Smart, they're the best team in the SEC. They've passed A&M for me. They've passed Alabama. They were already ahead of Texas, so now I view them in an entirely different tier. And this is where I want to get into some of my additional takeaways. So Kirby Smart is still the best. We've already talked about it, but I want to spend a few more seconds or maybe a few more minutes on this. We talked about it in the preseason entering this year, that last year for Georgia, Carson Beck had, I think, 3 games where he had 2 or even, no, it wasn't 2, he had 3 or more turnovers, interceptions, fumbles. Florida, Alabama, and Texas in the regular season. 2 of those games he won by double digits. The third one he lost on the road to a team that he struggled to beat, and he came back and nearly beat them. No coach does that. No coach does that. Now, I will hear arguments to say that, like, Ryan Day would never put his team in that position. I would listen to that. I would. But, I mean, you could also say the same thing with, like, Kalen DeBoer, for example, although Simpson didn't turn it over quite, I think, 3 times, but twice, or at least once, that pick six was brutal, and they lost. What Smart is able to do from a game management perspective is something that I think, depending on how Indiana does this year, you could only put Cignetti in. You could only do that. Maybe Day. But Day is clear-cut number 2 as of right now, and Cignetti is bordering on being number 1, especially if IU wins it all, because of the coaching job he's doing. For Smart to be in that rarefied air, and to be the only one to have won 2 national titles in the 2020s, not the 2010s, which are far gone. Sorry, Dabo Swinney. You're no longer a top 5, top 10. You're not even a top 25 head coach in my book. You're just not. Not right now, and the right now is what matters. To be able to rebound in rushing offense after losing Tate Ratledge, after losing Jared Wilson, after losing several NFL offensive linemen, and you retool. You get better in a way that other schools like Alabama and Ohio State lose fewer offensive linemen than you do, and you are better than them at those positions. You're more physical than them at the point of attack. And I don't know. I just think that's impressive. I think people should take recognition of that. And it's not me hating on Alabama or any of the other top programs. I think it's facts at this point, and it's backed by multiple game series and game data. And if you want to say that, well, Kirby is an Alabama problem, fine. Ryan Day has a Michigan problem that you could argue is worse based on the fact that Michigan on an average basis isn't as good as Alabama. You could say that Kirby Smart has had some issues with playoff success over the past 3 years. Fine. A lot of that, to a certain degree, has been random or things that aren't his fault. I can say that same thing about, Steve Sarkisian. I could say it about Dan Lanning. You could say that about Ryan Day before last year. And keep in mind, Smart has won 2 titles. Keep that in mind. I I think he's still the number 1 coach, and I think this game proves it. I just do. No one is going to sit here and tell you that Georgia has a roster that's the closest to being a generational one this year. People know that, for example, the best team north of the Mason-Dixon line, at least from what we know of right now, most likely the best, Ohio State, Caleb Downs, their 2 best wide receivers, Tatum Smith and Arvell Reese, are like all first-round caliber players, maybe Caden McDonald. They have more first-rounders at this point than, like, whether this year or assumed to be next year with Smith, than a lot of teams do, if not all of them. And for Georgia to play Texas this way and to beat them this soundly is a testament to Kirby and the job that he has done. I know I'm probably rambling a bit, but I love to justify my opinions, and I've probably gotten to a point where I'm monologuing, but you know what? It's worth it. It's totally worth it, because we like good coaching here on College Football with Sam. We love talking about good coaching, reminiscing about the memories. And for Kirby Smart to do what he did tonight and to win the SEC last year with that banged-up roster and with a schedule that might have been the toughest in college football outside of, maybe this year's Wisconsin, I'll have to compare at the end of the year, is pretty crazy and admirable. Mike Bobo is fantastic. So let me just go back and quickly read you some numbers again. Georgia was in the 68th percentile in EPA per play, 69th in success rate. That's nice. 70th in EPA per drop back, 52nd EPA per rush, 75th in yards per drop back. They were in the 50th percentile in explosive play rate. They were in the 43rd percentile in yards per play. Their total EPA at the end of the game was a negative 1.08. Texas's was a negative 31.69. Yeah, Bobo has been insane this year. The play calls, you can't really predict what they're going to do offensively. The fact that their rushing attack at times looks like USC's under Riley, where it's like the downfield running happens in a blink of an eye, where the back is just speeding forward with all this momentum, much like Woody Marks or King Miller, like whether last year or this year with USC and how they run block. They get downfield. Their technique is really good. The way they block is good. They do it right. They're strong. They get low center of gravity and push guys forward. And then their backs also use the low center of gravity. I'm not saying it's the same style as Riley. I'm not qualified enough to talk about like how similar it is, what percentage of it is similar and different. I'm just saying in the way that it is powerful and is able to get downhill, and how he's developed Gunnar Stockton, how they were able to exploit Texas's secondary down the field, not just from a like missing tackles angle or yards after contact, but having receivers open downfield against the secondary with Taft healthy and with a bye week to prepare. That is some elite stuff from Mike Bobo. He should be a Broyles Award semifinalist. And again, Stockton's a great quarterback. The pass offense only makes Mike Bobo look more fantastic. This is absolutely incredible what Georgia has been able to do offensively this year. It's one of the best offenses in the country, ladies and gentlemen. When you look at ESPN's efficiency metrics, and these are not updated yet, they'll be updated tomorrow morning. So by the time a lot of you are watching this, they'll already be updated. But at the time of this recording, little after midnight Eastern time, Georgia has the 8th most efficient offense. And they just handily beat the 8th most efficient defense. They, after the performances I've seen today, will probably jump into the top 5. Like their lead over A&M is going to grow. They're going to pass Cincinnati. They're probably going to pass Notre Dame, and they should. They'll be bordering on Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State levels of offensive efficiency. They could even pass USC. Maybe even Vanderbilt. This could be the best offense in the country. It is in contention for that. For what Georgia wants to do, which is ball control, take away possessions, lead the clock, and just get points. Don't take game-breaking shots every play. Don't try to force the explosive. Don't try to score as many points as possible. Their goal is to just win and control their opponent and suffocate them. It might be the best in America. That is how good their offense is, and people don't realize it. You heard it here first, or maybe not first, but I'm another person joining that train. This offense, relative to this season, if it continues to play at this level, is elite. They also dominated the lines of scrimmage. Talked about it earlier, but Georgia has better players on the line. They play harder on the line than Texas does. Josh Pate released a stat on Twitter. Georgia's played Texas 3 times, Kirby versus Sark, and they're averaging fewer than 30 yards per rush when you take sacks into account, which is what most teams, most sites do in college. I hate it because sacks, you should just watch Julian Sayin, for example, or Will Howard last year. Sacks are mostly a quarterback stat. They are. And if you have elite pocket awareness, you can hide a struggling offensive line. Georgia's just killed Texas over and over again on the lines of scrimmage. And I think it's for a variety of reasons. Strength and conditioning, a cultural thing, a coaching thing, game planning, personnel, how you recruit, the fact that Georgia does have a more talented roster technically, according to high school recruiting rankings, better development probably. It's a lot of things going into that. Oh, drastically better recruiting on the offensive line. Georgia's blue chip ratio, I think, is above a 50% there, and Texas is under a 40%. And both O-line coaches are good, so then, recruiting kind of is the tie-breaking vote there. Georgia's one of the best lines of scrimmage teams in America. I would say that, Oregon, healthy Indiana, healthy Miami. I would add Georgia up there as one of the best lines of scrimmage teams in America. And that is one of the prerequisites to winning it all. And if their defensive line plays the way it did tonight, and they play that way in the playoffs, they're going to put together some really dominant performances. Last but not least is a fact. Texas is not Georgia. They're just not. They are in a lower tier in just about every way. The defense tonight played worse. The offense from a holistic seasonal standpoint is far worse. The coaching is worse. Georgia's just better. They're a better program. They recruit better. They develop better. They're on top of the world. And look, Texas is not disappointed in the way that Clemson and Penn State have, but they've still disappointed. Just because people aren't talking about them as much because Penn State and Clemson, wet the bed with their own blood, doesn't mean that you can't point out that Texas wet their own bed. They just didn't pee blood. They just peed themselves with regular urine. It's still disgusting. It's still not a sign of good things. It's just not as bad as the other two examples, as the other two patients. Texas really needs to win out, and they need to look themselves in the mirror and try to avoid this being a program loss, because the scope of this loss could be a program loss. For Georgia, this is just a sign where, as I said to begin this long video, Georgia is that team, they are that program, and they have the best head coach in America. Doesn't mean they're going to win it all this year, because the best head coaches don't always win it all. Dabo was 500 against Saban, and I think we all know Saban was a much better coach. Ed Orgeron won a title, and he was not a good coach. Kirby Smart has won 2 titles, while Saban was at Alabama with a first round, round 1 pick 1 quarterback. And Bryce Young didn't win it, and Kirby did with Stetson Bennett. Jim Harbaugh was not a better coach, I don't think, than Kirby Smart or Nick Saban. But he won it all in 2023. And Ryan Day last year, I don't think he was better than Smart, but he won it all. So there's just a lot of things that go together to win it all, but having an elite coach helps. Georgia doesn't just have an elite coach, but they have the number 1 coach. And they don't just have wonderful, they don't just have a wonderful talent roster. Their roster in practice is wonderful, and elite lines of scrimmage is a prerequisite to win it all, on top of having a run game. Being able to run the football and stop the run is what every national champion, dating back to 2020 Bama and probably before that, with maybe the exception of 19 LSU, just had generational quarterback, generational receivers, and still a really good defense, especially in the secondary. And that was also a different era with a different meta of football. Those are some prerequisites. Georgia checks those boxes. Again, what a win for Kirby Smart and for Georgia. Thank you for watching. It's my mission on College Football with Sam to make you the most informed, knowledgeable, and entertained fan as possible. We aren't perfect, but we hit the nail on the head more often than we hit our thumb with the hammer. Make sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment, and if you're here, you've probably already watched the whole video. So thank you for doing those things.